Let's get to the news from Comcast. There are a lot of media companies that have cable assets that probably aren't in a strong enough position to do what Brian Roberts is able to do. He can continue to run Comcast exactly like he wants without the cash flow from cable, which the other companies may not be able to do.
No, although there's an allure of this SpinCo, they're calling it, which is someone like David Zaslav at Warner Discovery could take some of that debt and float it away with some of the cable networks and do that kind of a transaction, which could free up the studio assets, the Max streaming service, to be more of a pure play. I think because of that cash flow issue. They don't have these other businesses around their content business like broadband or theme parks or all the other things that Comcast does, or frankly Disney does as well. And it's really challenging. The math is hard to do that on a company that is so based on cable.
Then what was Comcast's rationale for? I mean, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. Why are they doing?
These are not growth businesses. The cable networks are not growth. Comcast is probably frustrated that they've been dragging down the stock. The stock has not been matching the market, as you guys know. And they can put this into another company. They can well capitalize it, send it on its way, and potentially let it do what it can do to either grow or stay the same and manage decline. And then it'll free up the growth businesses at Comcast where they believe it'll help the stock.
Disney thought about this and opted not to. You think they come back around to this idea and rethink that strategy now that Comcast has done this?
It's possible, but I actually don't think so because Disney has other logistical issues. Their streaming services are much more tied to the content on the cable networks, FX. They have this big flagship over-the-top ESPN service that's launching next year. That's tied to the broadcast network at ABC and the cable network at ESPN. So it's a much more logistically difficult decision. Right. Doesn't mean it won't happen. It could, but it would just take a lot more machinations to make it happen.
What do you think of the carriage deals that are in effect currently for these networks and the power or lack of power you get by combining them with other cable channels down the line? Which is to say, if you're going to bulk up, if that is the whole conceit here, does that either protect, increase, shift, change, you think, this bundle question?
Well, when you're talking about carriage negotiations, scale is always better. So if you have more of these networks, particularly more of the networks that are in demand and with content people like, obviously you're going to have more negotiating power.
Who do you think is in demand?
Well, to be honest, the news networks are pretty good. I mean, they talk about MSNBC and CNBC as potentially being the locomotive of this rail, this train, exactly, that could drive carriage.
But where are you on like an A&E or AMC networks or
the entertainment
Stars or all of the networks that do seem somewhat orphaned?
Yeah.
That I think within the sort of speculative world, if you are going to go do this, or you say to yourself, what's available? Those are the assets that would be available.
Yeah.
Do those improve your lot in life or not?
I think the entertainment networks are hard, mostly because the content for those networks is largely available on streaming. You got to look at stuff that isn't available, like news, like financial news, things that have networks that have sports. I mean, if you look at USA, they have Premier League and they have WWE. Those are two pretty good engines for viewers. Those are going to be more valuable in a carriage negotiation than something like an A&E or something where the content tends to pop up all over the dial.
In 2 or 3 years, when we look back at this, will SpinCo, as we're calling it, have been a buyer or a seller?
A buyer and a seller.
A buyer or a seller.
I think that right now, I think the plan is for them to be a buyer.
Is that how it'll turn out? Because if things don't look attractive to add to your cable position, couldn't private equity buy what you said was the choo-choo?
They could.
And then cut costs and sell it to somebody else? Or, I mean, I see consolidation happening, and either SpinCo is a consolidator or becomes consolidated with somebody else.
The plan right now is for it to be a consolidator, and that's what Mark Lazarus's job is. If it just stays the same, then these are declining assets. That's not what you want in a growth business that will be publicly traded. So the idea is to go out and pick off other networks that could be additive, things they don't have, like lifestyle, like food, like potentially BET from Paramount, things that add to the package of channels that could be sold to distributors.
Right. And so all vertical or all horizontal, it could be some of each.
Some of each, yeah.
So
I honestly don't think we know. And it's going to be a year until this transaction is done.
They got all these bells and whistles that are making all this money doing different things. Right. Could MSNBC do that? Could CNBC?
Totally. There could be a CNBC standalone streaming service that is launched off of the channel. It could be an MSNBC streaming service. There could be all these niche services that could pop up as a tile on a streaming service branded to the network.
But what you're saying is the talent and the people that are on those stations are the most important components of all this?
I mean, you joke, but the news networks have loyal. The news networks have loyal audiences.
You on that. I'm not trying to pull that out of you. Are you absolutely sure that they're the most important part of this whole?
The viewers will follow, particularly the morning talent on news networks wherever they go.
On the business news network.
Absolutely.